Some people work extremely hard. They work 80, 90, maybe even 100 hours a week, and still they've got a hard time building wealth. While others, they barely try and they suddenly become rich. The difference in becoming rich and becoming wealthy and not becoming wealthy seems to not just be effort. Working hard is like pressing the gas pedal. It just determines how fast you're going. But if you entered the wrong race, it doesn't really matter how fast you're going. You can work really hard on the wrong thing. And I think most people do exactly that. Because that's the lie that we've been told by our parents and our parents' generation, that if you just work hard, you will become successful at some point. But if that's already enough, then a random factory worker in China would become rich. So obviously, hard work is not enough. Now then there's the refined story of that. Maybe it's not just about working hard, maybe it's also about studying. As in, we need to build a skill. And only after we've built a skill, then we can become successful if we work hard. But here's the issue. There's many skills that don't pay properly. You can study very hard on liberal arts and gender studies. You can read all of the literature. You can write the best essays ever. Still, you will have a hard time economically succeeding. And so obviously an engineering degree tends to be more useful in the workforce compared to just a philosophy degree. But the tricky part is that the really useful things, they tend to shift over time. So really, it's not just about having a skill. It's not just about working hard. It's about having a useful skill where you can add enough value to society. But what's useful and what's not useful shifts very, very quickly. It's a moving target. And that's the tricky part. The people that don't seem to be putting in that much effort, they simply directed their effort towards a skill that was extremely highly valuable to society. And that's how they got wealthy. And again, this is a moving target. When I make videos about crypto here on this channel, and we are in a bull market, then my knowledge is extremely useful to society, because then all the analysis that I make, all the wallet tracking that I make, all the alpha that can generate by knowing the technology better than the rest, that has a lot of usefulness. And so I get a lot of subscription to premium. I make a lot of additional money in the market. During bull markets, being deeply skilled in crypto is very valuable. During bear markets, the value of those skills to a degree fall. And so yes, we can protect ourselves and not lose as much as others, but still, we are not making loads of money. We are simply just outperforming, buying and holding the asset. Let's say Bitcoin goes down by 50% and we earn 10%. Then relatively speaking, we made a lot of return. We more than doubled our Bitcoin stack, but measured in US dollars, we really didn't make that much. And so really, the tricky part is, what will be a useful skill in the future? Where can we invest 1, 2, 3 years of hard learning and then have a skill that will be in high demand, but not in high supply at that particular point in time? That's really how wealth is generated. That's where the leverage is coming from. You can have very deep knowledge regarding the print magazine business. For example, you can have the best print magazine, yet because the industry itself is shrinking, you're not doing very well. And then you can just have a slightly above average YouTube channel and you might be doing much better compared to the print magazine guy. Really, the macro waves, they are extremely important. In a bull market, I tend to get 10 or 20 new sign-ups to premium every single day. In a bear market, those are the numbers I get in a month, not in a day. The fluctuation is crazy. So going back to the analogy, right? Hard work is like how much we press the gas pedal. Studying is maybe what kind of car we use for the race. But the usefulness of the skill that we learn, that equates to the race that we enter. Is there even a prize to be earned when we win that race? How much do we earn when the race is won? Where is all that energy directed? The direction matters most. You don't want to become the world champion in hobby horsing, for example. If you don't know what hobby horsing is, then feel free to Google this. It's quite interesting. But if your target is wealth building at least, and maybe you should enter another race. Maybe it makes sense to really consider what kind of skill will become the most valuable in a few years from now. Working average in a growing trend is much more valuable than working extremely hard in a declining trend. because work is linear, right? We can maybe double the number of hours that we work, but trends, they compound, right? A market can easily triple, quadruple, maybe 10x in size over the course of a few years, and it can shrink by 80 or 90% over the course of 10 years. So even if you work double, you're not going to get sufficient output in a shrinking market. Over the long term, the macro trends really dominate everything. And the way how I learned this was with poker. So before my crypto journey, before my programming journey, I was a professional poker player. I played poker for 3 to 4 years between Hong Kong and Gibraltar. I paid my study fees with that. There are a lot of commonalities between online poker playing and crypto trading. It's bankroll management or risk management. It's estimating expected values and probabilities. And it's becoming better at a particular game compared to the average participant by learning faster than the rest. But there was a macro wave. There was a time when poker was growing very, very quickly, and then there was a time where poker shrunk. I actively played as a profession between 2007 and 2011 roughly. 2011 we had the Black Friday. This is when poker stars and full-tail poker got banned in the US. This is where the trend really turned around. But the people that started playing poker professionally before me, so say in 2004, 2003, they made much more money. During my time, I made $100,000 to $200,000 per year playing poker. The people that started just 2 days earlier, they made millions of dollars. And the people that started after 2011, they maybe only make a few $10,000 per year. It might only make sense for them to do this if they work in a very low-cost country. So when a market is growing, all the money flows towards the early adopters. When a market is shrinking, it's just a battle against ever-increasing headwind. We want to get out of a market that permanently shrinks. And it's very hard to estimate what a market will do in 3, 4, 5 years. Will crypto see another bull run, for example? Or will all the attention then be on artificial intelligence? Or will there be a new wave that's growing that nobody is currently talking about, or that only a few very early adopters are currently discussing? It's relatively easy to figure out that print media is probably not going to see a comeback, or that online poker will also have a hard time growing again. But for markets that are just at the edge, it's not that easy, right? Will crypto still be relevant in 10 years? How relevant will it be? Will it all be just Bitcoin? Or will there be actually monetary technology that might be used by artificial intelligence, that maybe AI, instead of using credit cards, then uses crypto tokens? How long can we still ride the crypto wave? We can already see how the percent gains that we make from one bull market to the next tend to shrink over time, right? In the early days, we had 100x from a bear market bottom to the bull market top. Then it went to 20x, then it went to 10x. Last time we went from 15k to roughly 120k, 125k. Maybe next time we will only have a 3x or 4x. It's not obvious what the focus should be. Billionaires with big tech companies make the wrong calls, right? For example, Facebook. Facebook renamed to Meta because it thought the metaverse and VR is going to be the big thing. And in the end, obviously, that was not the case. Investments into virtual reality declined massively, and instead they all moved towards artificial intelligence. And so I think it always makes sense to experiment with new things, to try to get a feel where the next wave of growth might come from. Of course, we still want to work on our current thing. We still want to exploit what we are good at, but we don't want to miss the next wave, because really the gains are to be made when we are early with the next wave. And so obviously there is artificial intelligence beyond ChatGPT, and that's what I tried to learn this month. I tried to focus on where can I generate value with crypto and investing using artificial intelligence. So for example, I made a back test. Does it make sense to only own the top 10% of stocks? Does it make sense to maybe only own the S&P 50 or the S&P 20 or the S&P 5 versus the S&P 500, right? So we only own, say, the top 5 stocks versus 500 stocks. How does this change our returns over time relative to our volatility? Doing that kind of analysis using manual coding takes extremely long. Using artificial intelligence, I built that analysis within 1 hour. So that was with a tool called Base 44. I talked about this more in the premium membership, but there's also Claude Code, right? Claude Code is now the more advanced way to use artificial intelligence for coding. And I'm planning to build apps to automate a few backtests, right? To automate our backtests for moving averages, for different assets, for different time frames, to also backtest other indicators to see what works on the shorter time frame, to analyze what's the risk versus reward of different approaches, and to just scale up our analysis. Something that would cost tens of thousands of dollars if we were to employ a skilled programmer that can now just cost a few $100s using AI. At least that's now my target. And so in the end, the winners of this economy are not necessarily the people that work the hardest or that learn the fastest. It's the people that learn the fastest on the relevant skill. And trying to pick the relevant skill and then go with that thing very, very quickly, that's really where all the value creation is made. The target is not to work hard or to learn hard. The target is to identify the winner early and then learn this quickly and then work hard on this quickly. It's the right direction. It's entering the correct race. The race that does have a nice prize pool at the end when it's won. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to give this a like. It will help the channel grow. Feel free to also check out the other mindset and strategy videos directly on this channel. Just click on the channel link, click the playlist, and then feel free to just binge watch videos like this if you got some value here. Thanks again for watching. See you next time on YouTube. Cheers.